Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Today, we're diving deep into the pantheon of the Elder Scrolls universe, specifically focusing on the 9 divines. Or, well, sometimes the 8, depending on where you are in Tamriel's timeline.
Ah yes, the divines. A pretty fundamental part of the Elder Scrolls lore, wouldn't you say? I mean, you can't really explore Cyrodiil or Skyrim without bumping into a temple or hearing someone praising Akatosh or Mara, right?
Absolutely. They're integral to the world's religions, cultures, and even the politics. They're not just background flavor. They actively shape the events and the lives of the people in Tamriel.
So, for anyone who might be new to the Elder Scrolls, or maybe just hasn't delved too deeply into the lore, who exactly are the 9 divines?
Okay, so traditionally, the 9 divines are Akatosh, Arche, Dibella, Julianos, Kynareth, Mara, Stendar, Talos, and Zenithar. They're the primary deities worshipped across Cyrodiil and, through the influence of the Empire, much of Tamriel. Each of them embodies different aspects of life, from time and death to love and commerce.
And these aren't just some recent additions to the Elder Scrolls universe, right? They've been around for a while, haven't they?
That's right. Their presence stretches all the way back to Daggerfall Asterisk, where each major city had a temple dedicated to a specific divine. You could even join these temples and gain access to unique services.
Oh, I remember that. Although, if I recall correctly, those temples weren't exactly getting along. Seemed like there was always some squabble brewing between the different divine factions.
A bit of divine rivalry, perhaps. Then in Morrowind Asterisk, the imperial cult took center stage. You had chapels dedicated to all 9 divines in areas under imperial control, and you could join the cult itself. That game gave us a really interesting look at how the Empire spread its religious influence.
Definitely. And who could forget Oblivion? The great chapels in each city, the wayshrines scattered throughout the wilderness. It really emphasized the divines' presence in everyday life. Although, joining the temples as factions like in previous games was no longer an option.
Right, the focus shifted a bit. And then we arrive at Skyrim Asterisk, where things get complicated. The 9 become the 8, at least officially.
Ah, yes, the elephant in the room, Talos. The whole Talos situation is a key element in Skyrim's Asterisk narrative. Can you give a quick refresher?
Sure. Following the Great War with the Aldmeri Dominion, the White Gold Concordat was signed, which among other things, outlawed the worship of Talos. So officially, the Empire recognizes only 8 divines in Skyrim Asterisk. Of course, many Nords still secretly worship Talos, viewing him as a vital part of their heritage and a protector of mankind.
Which creates a really interesting dynamic within the game itself. You have this tension between the official imperial religion and the deeply held beliefs of the Nord people. It's a great example of how the lore and the game mechanics intertwine.
Exactly. And it highlights the lasting impact of historical events on the religious landscape of Tamriel. The shift from 9 to 8 divines is more than just a footnote. It's a major point of contention and a driving force behind much of the conflict in Skyrim Asterisk.
Okay, so we've set the stage. We know who the 9 divines are Asterisk, generally, and we understand their significance within the Elder Scrolls universe. Where do we go from here?
Well, now it's time to delve into each of the divines individually. We'll start with Akatosh, the dragon god of time, and explore his role in the creation myth, his representation of the Cyrodiilic Empire, and the blessings he provides to those who seek his favor.
Akatosh, huh? The big cheese, the head honcho of the 9 divines. Dragon god of time sounds pretty important.
He is. Akatosh is generally considered the first of the gods to form in the beginning place. His creation basically paved the way for all the other deities and pantheons to emerge. So, yeah, pretty fundamental.
Okay, so he's like the cosmic cornerstone. How does that translate to his role in Tamriel and the Cyrodiilic Empire?
Well, in the Cyrodiilic Empire, Akatosh embodies endurance, invincibility, and everlasting legitimacy. He's the ultimate symbol of imperial power and stability. Think of him as the divine guarantor of the empire's right to rule.
So, any emperor worth his salt is probably invoking Akatosh left and right to justify his reign, right? Like a divine seal of approval.
Exactly, and it's not just lip service. Akatosh is deeply woven into the imperial cult and its ideology. He's the dragon at the heart of the empire, representing its strength and longevity.
All right, so he's super important to the empire. In Oblivion Asterisk, where could you find Akatosh's presence manifest in the game world?
Well, the most obvious place is the chapel in Kvatch. Or was the chapel in Kvatch before, the whole Oblivion Gate situation? That was a pretty central location for his worship until things went south, literally.
Oh right, that minor inconvenience. What about the more out-of-the-way places, the Wayshrines?
Ah, yes. There are several Wayshrines dedicated to Akatosh scattered throughout Cyrodiil. One is southeast of Skingrad, near the Aelid ruined Silor. Another is east of Anvil, just north of Fort Strand. There's also one south of Bruma, along the Orange Road, and another just outside Cheydinhull's south wall.
So if you were a pilgrim making your way through Cyrodiil, you could theoretically hit all these Wayshrines and pay your respects to Akatosh along the way.
Precisely, and if you did, you'd receive his blessing. In Oblivion Asterisk, Akatosh grants a blessing that fortifies your magicka and speed.
Magicka and speed, huh? So, a boost for both your magical abilities and your swiftness. Makes sense, given his association with time and the Imperial arts.
Yep, it's a pretty useful blessing, especially for characters who rely on magic or need to move quickly in combat. It's like Akatosh is giving you a little temporal advantage.
Okay, so to recap, Akatosh is the dragon god of time, the chief deity of the 9 divines, and a symbol of the Cyrodiilic Empire's power and legitimacy. You could find his chapels and Wayshrines throughout Cyrodiil, and he offers a blessing that enhances magicka and speed. Anything else we should know about Akatosh before we move on?
Well, it's worth noting that Akatosh's role and interpretation can vary depending on the culture. In some traditions, he's more closely tied to the concept of linear time, while in others, he represents more cyclical or eternal aspects. But overall, he remains a central figure in the Tamrielic pantheon.
Good point. It's always important to remember that these deities aren't monolithic entities. Their worship and understanding are shaped by the people who believe in them. All right, I think we've covered Akatosh pretty thoroughly. Who's next on our divine tour?
Next up is Arche, the god of the cycle of life and death. And trust me, he's much more than just the god of funerals, especially when you start looking at cultures where Akatosh's time aspects are less understood.
Arche, the god of life and death. Sounds like a cheerful fellow. I'm picturing a lot of black robes and somber processions.
Well, there's certainly a connection to funerals and burials, but Arche's significance runs much deeper. He's the one who ensures the natural progression of life and death, maintaining the balance. In fact, he's incredibly important in cultures where Akatosh's role as the dragon god of time is less understood or emphasized.
Okay, that makes sense. So, if a culture doesn't really grasp the whole time dragon concept, Arche steps in as the more relatable figure, managing the here and now, the comings and goings of living things.
Exactly. He's the mortal's god in a way. It's said that Arche didn't even exist asterisk before Lorcan created the mortal plane. He's intrinsically tied to mortal existence and its limitations.
Lorcan always stirring the pot, isn't he? So if Akatosh represents the big picture, the grand scheme of time, RK is more concerned with the individual lives within that timeline. Birth, death, and everything in between.
Precisely. That's why he's so closely associated with burial rites and funeral customs. He guides souls to the afterlife and ensures their peaceful transition.
And I'm guessing he's not a big fan of anyone trying to mess with that natural cycle, right? Necromancers, undead, that sort of thing.
You guessed it. RK's priests are staunch opponents of necromancy and all forms of the undead. They see it as a perversion of the natural order, a violation of RK's domain. It's a pretty black and white issue for them. No shades of gray when it comes to raising the dead.
So, where would a devout follower of RK go to pay their respects in Cyrodiil? Any notable chapels or wayshrines dedicated to him in * Oblivion?
Well, the main chapel of RK is located in Cheydinhal. It's a prominent landmark in the city and a center for his worship. Beyond that, you can find wayshrines to RK scattered across the landscape.
Give me some locations. I'm always up for a good pilgrimage, even a virtual one.
All right, there's a wayshrine well southwest of Skingred and south of the Aelid ruined Cylor, near the border with Elsewhere. Another one is north of Anvil, just north of the Brina Cross Inn on the Gold Road and southeast of Bleak Mine. And finally, you can find one southwest of Skingred, to the southeast of Fat Rat Camp.
Excellent. I'm adding those to my travel itinerary. And what blessing does RK bestow upon his faithful followers?
RK grants a blessing of health. It's a straightforward, practical boon, increasing your maximum health. Very useful for those who find themselves on the front lines, battling the forces of darkness, or just clumsy adventurers who keep falling off cliffs.
Health, huh? So he's not just about death and the afterlife. He also cares about preserving life, at least for a little while longer. Makes sense, given that whole cycle thing.
Exactly. It's about maintaining the balance. He opposes premature death and seeks to protect the living from those who would disrupt the natural order. He's not just the God you pray to when someone dies. He's the God you thank for every sunrise.
Okay, I'm starting to see RK in a new light. He's not just the Grim Reaper. He's the guardian of life, the protector against unnatural death, and a vital figure in cultures that may not fully grasp Akatosh's temporal complexities. So, to summarize, RK is the god of the cycle of life and death, opposing necromancy, presiding over burials, and blessing his followers with increased health. Ready to move on to the next divine?
Absolutely. Next up is Dibella, the goddess of art, beauty, and eroticism.
Dibella, goddess of art, beauty, and eroticism. That's quite a portfolio. I'm picturing a lot of silk robes and strategically placed flower petals.
Well, you're not entirely wrong. Dibella is definitely a popular goddess, particularly in Cyrodiil. She has an * lot of different cults dedicated to her, each focusing on slightly different aspects of her domain. Some are devoted to women, some to artists and aesthetics, and yes, others to erotic instruction.
Erotic instruction, huh? Sounds like a fun temple to visit. Is it like art classes but with more skin?
I imagine the curriculum varies depending on the specific cult, but the underlying principle is the same, seeking truth and enlightenment through beauty and pleasure. It's not all just hedonism, though. There's a genuine appreciation for art, aesthetics, and the human form.
So it's like a celebration of the senses, finding the divine in the physical world. I can dig it. It's certainly a change of pace from RK's somber processions.
Exactly. It's a more vibrant approach to spirituality, and it's not just about physical beauty either. Dibella also embodies inner beauty, harmony, and grace.
So, what would a house of Dibella be like? What could you expect to find inside?
Think opulent decorations, beautiful artwork, sensual music, and skilled artisans. The priests and priestesses are Epicureans, focused on experiencing and creating beauty in all its forms. It's a place to indulge the senses and appreciate the finer things in life.
Sounds like my kind of place. More aesthetically pleasing than a dungeon, I must admit. Where could one find a major chapel to Dibella in * Oblivion?
The Great Chapel of Dibella is located in Anvil. It's a prominent structure in the city and a hub for her worship. You can't miss it.
Right on the coast, if I remember. Makes sense, with Anvil being a port city. A place of beauty and indulgence for sailors returning from long voyages, perhaps.
Perhaps, and of course, there are wayshrines dedicated to Dibella scattered throughout Cyrodiil, for those seeking her favor while traveling.
Lay 'em on me. I need to update my divine sightseeing itinerary.
All right, there's one just southeast of the Imperial City, on the Red Ring Road, east of Fort Virtue. Another is well northeast of Laowian, east of the Yellow Road and southeast of the Drunken Dragon Inn. And finally, you'll find one south of Chorol and just northeast of Fort Carmala.
Excellent. What kind of blessing does Dibella grant to those who visit her shrines and temples? I'm guessing it's not increased strength or health.
No, Dibella's blessing enhances your personality. It makes you more charming, persuasive, and likable. Basically, it helps you get your way in social situations.
Ah, perfect for haggling with merchants, schmoozing with nobles, or convincing guards to look the other way. A very practical blessing in its own way.
Exactly, and it fits perfectly with her overall theme of beauty and harmony. When you're more personable and likable, you're more likely to create positive interactions and foster goodwill.
So to sum it up, Dibella is the goddess of art, beauty, and eroticism, worshipped through various cults in Cyrodiil. Her main chapel is in Anvil, and she has wayshrines scattered throughout the land. Her blessing enhances personality, making you more charming and persuasive. Are there any knightly orders associated with Dibella?
Yes, the Order of the Lily is dedicated to Dibella. They see their role as protectors of the House of Dibella, and are there to protect, and when necessary, die prettily for her houses. They recognize that the priests and priestesses within are often too consumed with the propagation of beauty to protect themselves adequately.
Excellent, that fits the theme perfectly. A knightly order dedicated to the goddess of beauty is a uniquely Elder Scrolls concept. I love it.
All right, I think we've explored Dibella's domain pretty thoroughly. Ready to move on to the next member of the 9 divines.
Let's do it. Who's next in line for our divine examination?
Next up is Julianos, the god of wisdom and logic. He's a bit more cerebral than Dibella, shall we say.
Julianos, god of wisdom and logic. Sounds like we're shifting gears from the sensuous to the scholarly. I'm picturing a lot of dusty tomes and intense debates.
That's a pretty accurate image. Julianos is associated with Junel, the Nordic father of language and mathematics. He's the Cyrodiilic god of literature, law, history, and even contradiction. So yes, lots of deep thought involved.
Contradiction? That's an interesting addition to the portfolio. So, he's not just about blindly accepting established wisdom. He's about questioning, analyzing, and understanding opposing viewpoints.
Exactly. Julianos encourages critical thinking and intellectual exploration. He recognizes that truth can be complex and multifaceted, and that understanding requires engaging with different perspectives.
So, he's the patron saint of philosophers and lawyers, then. Arguing for the sake of arguing, but with a higher purpose in mind.
Precisely. And not just arguing, but also preserving and transmitting knowledge. Monastic orders dedicated to Julianos, founded by Tiber Septim, are the keepers of the Elder Scrolls themselves.
Whoa, that's a pretty big responsibility. So these monks are basically the librarians and guardians of some of the most powerful and potentially dangerous artifacts in Tamriel. No pressure, right?
Indeed, they're tasked with safeguarding these ancient texts and interpreting their prophecies. It requires immense wisdom, discipline, and a dedication to the pursuit of knowledge.
So, if you're looking for answers to the universe's biggest questions, you'd probably want to pay a visit to one of these monastic orders. Assuming they're willing to share their secrets, of course.
Well, knowledge is power, and they're understandably cautious about who they share it with. But those who demonstrate genuine intellectual curiosity and a thirst for understanding may find themselves welcomed into their ranks.
All right, so where could you find signs of Giuliano's influence in asterisk oblivion? Any notable temples or wayshrines dedicated to him?
The Great Chapel of Giuliano's is located in Skingrad. It's a prominent landmark in the city, reflecting the town's dedication to learning and scholarship.
Ah, Skingrad. Known for its wine, its cheese, and apparently its devotion to the god of wisdom and logic. A town after my own heart, really.
And beyond the Great Chapel, there are, as always, wayshrines dedicated to Giuliano's scattered across Cyrodiil.
All right, hit me with the locations. I need to know where to go to get my dose of divine intellect.
There's one south-southeast of Chorral, roughly between Weatherleash Estate and the Rock Bottom Caverns to the west-northwest. Another is northeast of Cheydinhull, north of Fort Farragut. You can also find one south of the Imperial City, on the Yellow Road about halfway between its junction with the Red Ring Road and Cracked Wood Cave. And finally, there's one just west-northwest of the Imperial City on the Great Central Island in Lake Rumare.
Lake Rumare, eh? A scenic spot for some contemplation, I imagine. What kind of blessing does Giuliano's bestow upon his followers who visit these places?
Giuliano's grants a blessing that enhances both your intelligence and your magicka. It's a powerful boon for mages and scholars, boosting both their mental acuity and their magical abilities.
Intelligence and magicka, a perfect combination for any aspiring wizard or lore master. Makes sense that the god of wisdom and logic would reward those who seek to expand their minds and master the arcane arts.
Exactly. It's a blessing that encourages further learning and exploration. Giuliano's rewards those who dedicate themselves to the pursuit of knowledge.
So to recap, Giuliano's is the god of wisdom and logic, associated with journal, literature, law, history, and contradiction. Monastic orders dedicated to him safeguard the Elder Scrolls. His great chapel is in Skingrad, and his wayshrines are scattered throughout Cyrodiil. His blessing enhances intelligence and magicka. Any knightly orders associated with Giuliano's?
Yes, the Knights Mentor are bound to follow the call of Giuliano's. While the schools of Giuliano's do most of the actual teaching, the Knights Mentor protect the sages and fight the ubiquitous forces of ignorance.
That sounds like a busy job. So those are the scholarly, intellectual, but also quite capable warriors of the god Giuliano's, there to protect knowledge, logic, and wisdom. Okay, I think we've thoroughly explored Giuliano's and his domain. Who's next on our list of divines?
Next, we'll turn our attention to Kynareth, the goddess of nature and the wind. Prepare for a breath of fresh air, because we're about to delve into the wilds of Tamriel.
Kynareth, the goddess of nature and the wind. So, we're going from dusty libraries to open skies and howling gales. A welcome change of scenery, I must say.
Exactly. Kynareth is the strongest of the sky spirits. She's the deity of the heavens, the winds, the elements, and the unseen spirits of the air. She embodies the raw, untamed power of nature.
So, she's like the Tamrielic version of a nature goddess. Controlling the weather, influencing the seasons, that sort of thing.
Precisely. And she's not just a distant, untouchable force. She actively interacts with the mortal world, shaping its landscapes and influencing its inhabitants.
I'm guessing she's pretty popular with sailors and travelers, then, relying on the winds to guide their ships and the stars to navigate their journeys.
Absolutely. Kynareth is the patron of sailors and travelers. They invoke her name for auspicious stars at birth and for good fortune in daily life. A favorable wind or a clear sky can make all the difference on a long voyage, so it pays to have the goddess of air on your side.
So she's not just about brute force and elemental power. She's also about guidance and protection for those who venture into the unknown. I like that.
And there's another, more subtle aspect to Kynareth's role. In some legends, she's the first to agree to Lorkhan's plan to create the mortal plane, providing the space for its creation in the void.
Wait, really? So she's got a connection to Lorkhan. That's surprising, given that Lorkhan is often portrayed as a trickster figure.
It's a complex relationship. Kynareth, in agreeing to Lorkhan's plan, provided the asterisk space for the mortal plane to exist. Think of it as her offering the canvas upon which Lorkhan could paint his creation. It was a necessary act, but not necessarily an endorsement of all of Lorkhan's methods.
Ah, I see. So she's not necessarily asterisk approving of Lorkhan's trickery, but she recognizes the potential for good that can come from the mortal plane. A sort of necessary evil situation.
You could say that. And there's another interesting connection. Kynareth is also associated with rain, a phenomenon said not to occur before the removal of Lorkhan's divine spark. So, in a way, she's tied to the consequences of Lorkhan's actions as well.
So Lorkhan messes everything up, and Kynareth is there to clean up the mess. Metaphorically speaking, of course. Bringing rain to a parched land, offering solace to weary travelers, that sort of thing.
Exactly. She's a force of healing and renewal, bringing life and prosperity to the world. And speaking of the world, where would one find temples or wayshrines dedicated to Kynareth in asterisk oblivion?
All right, let's lace up our hiking boots and explore the Serie wilderness. Where do we need to go to pay our respects to the goddess of air?
Interestingly, there's no great chapel dedicated to Kynareth in any of the major cities in asterisk oblivion asterisk. She's more of a wilderness deity, worshipped in secluded groves and open spaces. However, there are wayshrines.
A goddess preferring the quiet reverence of the open sky. I would expect nothing less. So where can we find those wayshrines?
You'll find a wayshrine about equal distances northwest of Skingrad and southwest of Choral, nor-northwest of Fort Dirich, east-southeast of Avnan-Ugalo, and southwest of Rock Bottom Caverns. Another is in the Nibne Basin, on the northeast shore of a nameless lake between the Yellow Road and the northern stretch of the Silverfish River. Finally, look just off the Gold Road east of Skingrad.
Those sound like some truly remote locations. You'd really have to make an effort to seek out Kynareth's blessing. Speaking of which, what kind of blessing does she offer to those who find her wayshrines?
Kynareth grants a blessing of agility. It enhances your reflexes, making you quicker and more nimble. Very useful for archers, thieves, and anyone who relies on speed and precision.
Agility, huh? So she's not just about the raw power of nature. She's also about the grace and finesse of movement. Makes sense, given her association with the wind. Like a gentle breeze guiding your arrow to its target.
Exactly. It's a blessing that encourages you to embrace the freedom and fluidity of nature, to move with the wind, to adapt to changing circumstances, to be light on your feet and quick on the draw.
Okay, I'm starting to get a real sense of Kynareth. She's the goddess of nature and the wind, a patron of sailors and travelers, and a subtle but powerful force in the creation of the mortal plane. She has no grand temples, preferring the solitude of the wilderness, and her blessing enhances agility. So what is the knightly order that serves Kynareth?
The Kynaran order are those knights who have dedicated themselves mind, body, and sword to the goddess of the air, Kynareth. They are most often in the company of her priests of the temple of Kynareth.
So those are the warriors, out there braving the wilds and the elements, in the service of Kynareth. Okay, I think we've thoroughly explored Kynareth and her domain. I feel a sudden urge to go climb a mountain or sail across an ocean. Who's next on our list of divines?
Next up is Mara, the goddess of love and fertility. Prepare for a journey into the heart of Tamrelic relationships.
Mara, the goddess of love and fertility. After Kynareth's wild landscapes, I'm expecting something a bit more domestic and cozy. Maybe a few flower garlands and the scent of freshly baked bread.
You're not far off. Mara is indeed nearly universally worshipped throughout Tamriel. Her origins stretch back to mythic times, where she was primarily a fertility goddess.
So we're talking about ancient agricultural societies, praying for bountiful harvests and healthy offspring. A very primal and fundamental form of worship, then.
Exactly. And that connection to fertility remains a core part of her identity, even in more modern interpretations. But Mara is much more than just a goddess of childbirth and crops. She's also the embodiment of love, compassion, and understanding.
So she covers the whole spectrum of relationships, from the biological imperative to procreate to the emotional bonds that connect people. A pretty comprehensive portfolio, if you ask me.
Indeed, and her influence extends beyond the mortal realm. She's often associated with Nur of the Anwad, the female principle of the cosmos that gave birth to creation.
Nur, that rings a bell. Isn't that a sort of primordial cosmic entity? The female counterpart to Anu, the male principle, like a divine yin and yang.
Precisely, and Mara is seen as a manifestation of Nur, bringing the feminine principle of creation to the forefront. She's the mother goddess, the source of all life and compassion.
So she's not just about romantic love. She's about a more fundamental, all-encompassing love that permeates the universe itself. That's a pretty powerful concept.
Absolutely. And her relationships with other deities are equally complex and fascinating. Depending on the religion, she's either married to Akatosh or Lorcan, or even the concubine of both.
Wait, what? Married to both Akatosh and Lorcan? That's quite the love triangle. Or rather, love polygon. I'm guessing there's some serious theological debate about that arrangement.
You have no idea. The interpretations vary wildly depending on the cultural and religious context, but the underlying theme is always the same. Mara represents a unifying force, bringing together disparate elements through love and compassion.
So even in her relationships with the other divines, she's embodying that principle of connection and harmony, bridging divides, fostering understanding. It sounds exhausting, to be honest.
Well, being a goddess is never easy, but Mara's influence is undeniable. She's a source of comfort and hope for countless people across Tamriel.
Okay, so where would a devotee of Mara go to seek her blessing in * oblivion? Any notable chapels or wayshrines dedicated to her?
The Great Chapel of Mara is located in Bravel. It's a prominent landmark in the city and a center for her worship. You'll often see couples exchanging vows and families seeking her blessing within its walls.
Ah, Bravel. Not exactly known for its scenic beauty, but I suppose every city needs a touch of divine love. And what about those wayshrines? Where can we find Mara's presence in the wilds of Cyrodiil?
There's one west of Skingrad, roughly between the Cursed Mine and Meridia's Shrine. Another is northeast of Laowian, partly submerged in the swamp southwest of Fieldhouse Cave. And finally, you can find one a short ways northwest of Anvil.
So, a bit of a mix of locations, from the hills near Skingrad to the swamps near Laowian. What kind of blessing does Mara bestow upon those who visit her shrines and temples?
Mara grants a blessing of willpower. It enhances your mental fortitude, making you more resistant to magic and mental manipulation. It also strengthens your resolve, helping you overcome challenges and resist temptation.
Willpower, huh? So she's not just about mushy feelings and romantic gestures. She's also about inner strength and resilience. A very practical blessing, especially for adventurers who face all sorts of mind-altering dangers.
Exactly. Love and compassion require strength and commitment. Mara's blessing helps you stay true to your values and resist the forces that would try to corrupt or control you.
So to recap, Mara is the goddess of love and fertility, nearly universally worshipped in Tamriel. She's associated with Nur, the female principle of creation, and has complex relationships with Akatosh and Lorcan. Her great chapel is in Bravel, and her wayshrines are scattered throughout Cyrodiil. Her blessing enhances willpower. What about the knightly orders?
The Marin Knights are those warriors who have dedicated their swords to the mother goddess Mara. They are sworn to protect her cause and her benevolences in Tamriel.
The Marin Knights, protecting love and peace by force if necessary. All right, that's a very Elder Scrolls juxtaposition of concepts. So they are like the bodyguards and enforcers of Mara, there to protect those things Mara represents. Mara seems to represent all things wholesome in Tamriel. Let's move on to Stendarr, the god of law and mercy.
All right, after that dive into love and compassion, let's shift gears again and talk about Stendarr, the god of law and mercy. Prepare for a dose of righteous might and merciful forbearance.
Stendarr, huh? God of law and mercy. Sounds like a bit of a balancing act. How do you reconcile those two seemingly contradictory concepts?
That's the core of Stendarr's philosophy, actually. He's not just about blindly enforcing the law. He's about ensuring that justice is tempered with mercy. He's the patron of righteous might, but also merciful forbearance.
So he's not just a stern judge handing down harsh sentences. He's also offering a helping hand to those who have fallen from grace. A sort of tough love approach to divine justice.
Precisely. He's the inspiration of magistrates and rulers, guiding them to make fair and just decisions. But he also reminds them to consider the circumstances and offer compassion where appropriate.
Okay, so he's not just about upholding the letter of the law. He's about upholding the asterisk spirit of the law, ensuring that justice serves the greater good and that mercy is extended to those who deserve it. Is that why he's seen as the patron of the Imperial Legions?
Exactly. The Imperial Legions are not just instruments of war. They're also upholders of law and order. Stendarr inspires them to act with courage and discipline, but also with compassion and respect for the people they're sworn to protect.
So he's not just a god of war. He's a god of war, ensuring that violence is only used as a last resort and that the innocent are protected from harm. It sounds like he took some inspiration from Nordic origins. Early Altmeri legends portray him as the apologist of men.
He's evolved from his Nordic origins into a deity of compassion, or sometimes righteous rule. Stendarr is said to have accompanied Tiber Septim in his later years.
So, where would a follower of Stendarr find solace and seek his blessing in Cyrodiil? Any notable chapels or wayshrines dedicated to him in * Oblivion?
The Great Chapel of Stendarr is located in Chorral. It's a prominent landmark in the city and a center for his worship. You'll often see magistrates and legionnaires paying their respects within its walls.
Ah, Chorral, a city known for its strong sense of community and its dedication to traditional values. Sounds like a perfect fit for the god of law and mercy. And what about those wayshrines? Where can we find Stendarr's presence in the wilds of Cyrodiil?
There's one well southwest of Chorral, near the Hammerfell border, right on top of the E in the Coluvian Highlands. Another is southeast of Sheogorath's shrine, just west of the Green Road, roughly halfway between Leyawian and Bravel. And finally, you'll find one on the Central Peninsula on the east shore of Lake Rumir.
Those sound like locations where one might need to reflect on tough questions of governance. So, a bit of a mix of locations, from the rugged highlands to the serene shores of Lake Rumir. What kind of blessing does Stendarr bestow upon those who visit his shrines and temples?
Stendarr grants a blessing of endurance. It enhances your physical stamina, making you more resistant to fatigue and disease. It also improves your ability to withstand physical punishment.
Endurance, huh? So he's not just about enforcing the law, he's also about providing the strength and resilience to uphold it. A very practical blessing for those who face the challenges of maintaining order in a chaotic world.
Exactly. Law and mercy require strength and commitment. Stendar's blessing helps you persevere in the face of adversity and remain steadfast in your dedication to justice. It's the strength to do what's right, even when it's difficult.
So to recap, Stendar is the god of law and mercy, the patron of righteous might and merciful forbearance. He's the inspiration of magistrates and rulers and is the patron of the imperial legions. His great chapel is in Choral, and his wayshrines are scattered throughout Cyrodiil. His blessing enhances endurance. What about the knightly orders?
The Crusaders are the Knights of Stendar, God of mercy. They protect the temples of Stendar and act as his compassionate blade when the situation demands.
Another fierce, but just order of knights, serving as the sword and shield of Stendar. Okay, I think we've thoroughly explored Stendar and his domain. It sounds like time to move on to Talos.
Indeed, next up is Talos, the god of war and governance. But be warned, this is where things get complicated, especially in the context of Skyrim Asterisk.
Ah, Talos, the dragonborn emperor, the unifier of Tamriel, and the source of so much political and religious tension. This should be interesting.
Indeed, Talos, also known as Tiber Septim, is arguably the most significant human figure in Tamrielic history. He conquered all of Tamriel and ushered in the Third Era and the Third Empire.
The dragonborn emperor who conquered all of Tamriel. So, we're talking about a military genius, a charismatic leader, and someone with a pretty impressive destiny, right?
Absolutely. He was born on the continent of Atmora with the name Talos. When he became Emperor of Tamriel, he took a Cyrodiilic name, Tiber Septim, the Dragon of the North. He's worshipped as the protector and patron of just rulership and civil society. He's basically the ultimate hero god of mankind.
And that's why he's so controversial, right? Because he wasn't born a god, he became a god through his actions and his legacy. That doesn't sit well with everyone, especially the Aldmeri Dominion.
Exactly. The Aldmeri Dominion views Talos' ascension as a violation of the natural order. They see him as a human usurper who stole a place among the divines. That's a key reason behind the ban on his worship following the Great War.
Which brings us to Skyrim Asterisk, where the worship of Talos is outlawed, and his shrines are often hidden away in secret places. It creates a really interesting dynamic, where you have these devout followers risking everything to honor their hero god.
Indeed, the ban on Talos worship is a major source of conflict in Skyrim Asterisk, fueling the tensions between the Empire and the Stormcloaks. It's a powerful example of how religious beliefs can shape political events.
So, in Skyrim Asterisk, Talos becomes a symbol of rebellion and resistance against imperial authority. He's the god of the oppressed, the underdog, the one who represents the Nords' cultural identity.
Precisely. And it's not just the Nords who revere him. Many humans across Tamriel see him as a symbol of hope and a protector against the forces of darkness. Even in areas where his worship is officially suppressed, his influence remains strong.
All right, so setting aside the political complexities for a moment, where would a follower of Talos have gone to pay their respects in Asterisk Oblivion? Where was his presence felt in Cyrodiil before the ban?
The Great Chapel of Talos is located in Bruma. It's a prominent landmark in the city, reflecting the town's strong Nord heritage and its unwavering devotion to the Dragonborn Emperor.
Bruma, nestled in the Geral Mountains, a northern city with a deep connection to Skyrim. Makes sense that they'd be particularly devoted to Talos. And what about those wayshrines? Where can we find Talos' presence in the pre-Skyrim world of Cyrodiil?
You'll find one midway between Skingred and Kvatch, just east of Miskarkand. Another is south of the Imperial City, on the Green Road, just southeast of the Inn of Ill Omen. And finally, there's one south-southeast of the Imperial City, on the west side of the Upper Nibin, between Hirsine's Shrine and Fort Variella.
So, a few different locations, from the hills near Kvatch to the Green Road south of the Imperial City. What kind of blessing did Talos bestow upon those who visited his shrines and temples?
Talos grants a blessing of strength. It enhances your physical power, making you more effective in combat. It also improves your ability to carry heavy loads.
Strength, huh? So, he's not just about military strategy and political maneuvering. He's also about raw physical power. Makes sense, given his role as a warrior emperor. He can assist one in being ready for war and in dominating in commerce, too.
Exactly. Talos was a warrior of unparalleled skill, and his blessing reflects that. It's a boon for those who rely on brute force to overcome their enemies.
So, to recap, Talos, also known as Tiber Septim, is the dragonborn emperor who conquered all of Tamriel and became a god. He's worshipped as the protector of just rulership, and is a source of political tension due to the ban on his worship in Skyrim. His great chapel is in Bruma, and his wayshrines are scattered throughout Cyrodiil. His blessing enhances strength. Are there any knightly orders associated with Talos in Oblivion or prior games?
Unfortunately, there are no specific knightly orders directly associated with Talos in Oblivion or earlier games. However, the Imperial Legion, as the embodiment of his empire's military might, could be seen as indirectly serving his ideals.
A key figure who still has relevance to Tamriel. Okay, I think we've thoroughly explored Talos and his complex legacy. Let's move on to the final member of the traditional 9 divines, Zenithar.
All right, after that dive into war and politics, let's shift gears one last time and talk about Zenithar, the god of work and commerce. Prepare for a lesson in Tamrielic economics.
Zenithar, the god of work and commerce. After all this talk of gods and knightly orders, it's time to think about making money.
Exactly. Zenithar is the deity of wealth, labor, commerce, and communication. He's the patron of merchants, artisans, and anyone who strives to improve their lot through honest work.
So, he's the Tamrielic version of a rags to riches story. The divine embodiment of the Protestant work ethic, perhaps.
In a way, yes. Zenithar represents the idea that hard work and ingenuity can lead to prosperity and success. He's a practical god, focused on tangible results and material well-being.
And I'm guessing his priests aren't exactly advocating for a life of monastic poverty, then. More like encouraging their followers to get out there and build successful businesses.
Precisely. Zenithar's priests promote the values of thrift, industry, and fair dealing. They believe that the way to peace and prosperity is through earnest work and honest profit, not through war and bloodshed.
So he's the anti-Talos in a way. Instead of conquering the world through military might, he's building it through trade and innovation. He's also associated with Zien, correct?
He is understandable associated with Zien, yes. However, in the Empire, he is a far more cultivated god of merchants and middle nobility. And you're right, Zenithar offers a different path to power and influence. He's not about domination, he's about cooperation and mutual benefit.
So instead of taking what you want, you're creating something of value and exchanging it with others. A much more sustainable and harmonious approach to societal development, I must say.
Indeed, and his worshippers say, despite his mysterious origins, Zenithar is the god that will always win. Hard work and ingenuity will always pay off in the long run, even if it takes time and effort.
All right, so where would a budding entrepreneur or a seasoned merchant go to seek Zenithar's blessing in Cyrodiil? Any notable chapels or wayshrines dedicated to him in * oblivion?
The Great Chapel of Zenithar is located in Laowian. It's a prominent landmark in the city, reflecting the town's thriving mercantile community and its dedication to commerce. A great place to reflect on trade opportunities by the water.
Laowian, a port city known for its diverse population and its bustling marketplaces. Sounds like a perfect fit for the god of work and commerce. And what about those wayshrines? Where can we find Zenithar's presence in the wilds of Cyrodiil?
You'll find one along the Gold Road southwest of Kvatch and just southeast of the Gotcho Inn. Another is south of the Fairgill Inn, just off the Green Road, south of the Imperial City. And finally, there's one just north of the Flooded Mine, which is itself just north of Bravel.
Those sound like great spots for a merchant to reflect on their business. So, a few different locations, strategically placed along trade routes and near centers of economic activity. What kind of blessing does Zenithar bestow upon those who visit his shrines and temples?
Zenithar grants a blessing of luck. It improves your chances of finding valuable items, succeeding in risky ventures, and generally experiencing good fortune in your endeavors.
Luck, huh? So, he's acknowledging that hard work alone isn't always enough. Sometimes, you need a little bit of divine intervention to tip the scales in your favor. Luck can be a great asset to a talented merchant.
Exactly. Zenithar recognizes that success often depends on a combination of skill, effort, and good fortune. His blessing helps you seize opportunities when they arise and overcome unexpected obstacles.
So, to recap, Zenithar is the god of work and commerce, the deity of wealth, labor, commerce, and communication. His great chapel is in Laowian, and his wayshrines are strategically placed throughout Cyrodiil. His blessing enhances luck, improving your chances of success in all your endeavors. So do we have a Zenithar's respective knightly order?
The Knights of Iron are dedicated to the god of commerce, Zenithar. They protect the members of his resolution from those who would disrupt their trade.
There's always someone looking to disrupt trade and commerce, but these Knights of Iron will stand against them. Okay, I think we've thoroughly explored Zenithar and his domain. Well, that concludes our review of the 9 divines, but we still need to discuss some of the more general institutions of worship.
Indeed, we should consider some of the temples dedicated to the divines, the blessings that the player can find at the wayshrines, and the knightly orders that serve the divines.
So, we've covered each of the 9 divines individually. But what about the broader structures and organizations associated with their worship? Temples, wayshrines, knightly orders. How do these elements contribute to the overall religious landscape of Tamriel?
Well, let's start with the temples. As we've discussed, each major city in Cyrodiil, and even in other provinces, typically has a great chapel dedicated to a specific divine. These chapels serve as centers of worship, community gathering places, and sources of spiritual guidance.
And they're not just pretty buildings, right? They offer services to the community, like healing, training, and even quests for devout followers. They're active participants in the lives of the people.
Exactly. And the architecture and decoration of these temples often reflect the specific divine they honor. The Chapel of Dibella in Anvil is filled with beautiful artwork and sensual imagery, while the Chapel of Stendar in Chorol is more austere and imposing, reflecting its dedication to law and order.
So the temples are like physical manifestations of the divine's values and ideals, shaping the environment and influencing the people who live nearby. Makes sense. What about the wayshrines? They seem a bit more accessible, scattered throughout the wilderness and available to any traveler.
That's right. Wayshrines are smaller, more secluded shrines dedicated to the divines. They're often found in remote locations, offering a place for weary travelers and pilgrims to rest, reflect, and seek divine blessings.
And those blessings can be pretty useful, right? A boost to your strength from Talos, A little extra luck from Zenithar. It's like the divines are offering a helping hand to those who show them respect.
Indeed, each divine offers a unique blessing that reflects their specific domain. And while the effects are temporary, they can make a significant difference in your adventures. Plus, it's a nice way to feel connected to the divines, even when you're far from the bustling cities and grand temples.
It's like a little reminder that the divines are always watching over you, offering their guidance and support, even in the darkest corners of Tamriel. Speaking of support, let's talk about those nightly orders. You mentioned them a few times during our divine discussions, and most are there to protect the temples.
Ah, yes. The nightly orders are military or quasi-military organizations dedicated to serving a specific divine. They embody the ideals of their patron deity, upholding their values and protecting their followers.
So they're like the divine's enforcers, ensuring that their will is carried out in the mortal realm. The Crusaders of Stendarr, striking down the wicked to deliver God's mercy, and the Knights of Iron, protecting the God of Commerce's followers. But do we see any conflict in their goals? It seems like Stendarr and Zenithar are a bit at odds.
These represent a mix of purposes, from righteous battle to maintaining law and order, to even protecting trade and learning. It may seem like a conflict of purpose, but each contributes something to the bigger picture. If the gods didn't want the orders in place, then they wouldn't be.
The temples, the Wayshrines, and the nightly orders, all working together to create a vibrant and complex religious ecosystem. It's a testament to the depth and richness of the Elder Scrolls lore. I appreciate how the game developers created this depth. By going to a Wayshrine or joining a nightly order, the game feels more vibrant and alive.
Exactly. And it's not just about the big, overarching narratives. It's about the small details, the subtle interactions, and the personal connections that make the world feel real and believable. The divines aren't just names in a book. They're active forces in the lives of the people, shaping their beliefs, their actions, and their destinies.
Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive into the 9 divines. We've explored their individual domains, their relationships with each other, and the institutions that support their worship. What a fascinating exploration.
Indeed, from Akatosh, the dragon god of time, to Zenithar, the god of work and commerce, the 9 divines represent a diverse range of values and ideals that have shaped the history and culture of Tamriel. And whether you're a devout follower, a skeptical scholar, or simply a curious traveler, their presence is undeniable.
Thanks for walking us through this pantheon. I feel like I have a much better understanding of the religions of Tamriel. I'm ready to start my own pilgrimage.
Thanks for joining me on this divine journey. Until next time, may the 9 divines guide your path.